Hello guys, Robot1 here, coming at you with a new Yu-Gi-Oh video, and in today's Yu-Gi-Oh video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 best decks going into July. Now, obviously, it is kind of hitting the off-season now, where there aren't a lot of events coming up. All we've really got left is Euros. I think there's like 1 or 2 regionals maybe left, and then Worlds coming up after that. And because of that, I wanted to just do the top 5 best decks going forward into July, because even though it is kind of like in the off season now where we don't have a super big amount of events, we still have a few that I feel like should really be talked about in terms of what you should probably be playing going into these events. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at the top 5 best meta decks going into July, and potential YCSs, and also maybe some regionals if there's any left out there, and obviously Euros when they get announced, and pretty much just talking about what you guys should probably be playing, how you should be playing it, and just my basic thoughts on it in general. So in today's video, let's go ahead and talk about this, the top 5 best decks going into July. Let's go. So at number 5, I have Therion Sun Avalon. Now, this deck, in my opinion, is actually really strong going into this month. Like, looking at the deck as a whole, where it can search a lot of different things and end on a lot of different disruptions, the deck has a lot going for it. It has the Therion cards that just give you a lot of searchability for plants, any of the other Therions, an Omni Negate, which is really, really strong. And then the Sun Avalon stuff in general gives you a lot of different things you can do. It gives you free special summons from the deck through Sunvine Sowing. It gives you a free compulse through the Plant Link 4 that just says you can compulse something and burn. It gives you a search for a literal skill drain for the turn, which isn't like hard ones because it's a continuous trap that you can just activate whenever you want. And a lot of these combos are normally just through like one card, which I think makes the deck really, really strong. And the fact that this deck can end on a lot of different kind of boards where all of them end with disruptions, it plays the adventure package as well, so you have access into an Omni Negate, which I just think is great, honestly. Like, having the fact that you can go ahead and search into your Omni Negate and then go ahead and get compulses along with obviously a ton of different disruptions. And the fact of the matter is, this deck is also really, really good because you can play into time, where you can literally just go ahead and make some Vine Healer to just go ahead and gain some amount of life points and then just survive. And it can also make really big attack points with Sunvine Thrasher, where you can gain like 800 per the link monster's rating that's pointing to. So in all honesty, Therion can do a lot on its own, but when you mix the Sun Avalon stuff in it, that just says, oh yeah, you can just go normal summon Sunseed or special summon it through Unexpected Die or something along those lines, and then just go into this really long-winded combo that can play for a very long time. Like, honestly, this deck has a lot of time that it can play into, and then just be able to gain some life points sometimes, which is great. Like, any deck, I think, that, especially with the current time rules, that can just play for a long time and then gain some life points is gonna be good most of the time, or even burn. And because the fact of the matter is, you're gonna have a long game 1, you're going to go into game 2, maybe lose, and then you have a very strong chance in game 3 because of that fact that you can do some damage, you can gain some life, and your turns are really long anyway. So this deck does promote a little bit of badness when it comes to the time rules, but overall it's very good just for the fact that it can make a really good end board. It can abuse things like the Plant Link 4 that's compulsed, can abuse the Therions that just an Omni Negate, can abuse the Avenger package that just gives you a free Omni Negate there, and also discards, because I believe there is a few cards that you want to discard so you can trigger your Therions. And it's just a really, really good deck overall, which I think is just strong going into the current month. So if you're going to locals and maybe want to play this, give it a look, give it a try. I definitely think this is going to be one of the really strong combo decks going into the current format. And yeah, it's just a really, really strong deck. So at number 4, I have swordsoul. And let's be honest, guys, I think everybody realizes that swordsoul is a really, really strong deck. This deck is absolutely insane for a lot of different reasons, and it's mainly because it can make literally 2 disruptions with literally 1.5 cards most of the time, as long as the 0.5 is a swordsoul or a worm. And that's because the deck has a lot of different routes and combo plays you can actually do. The main one, which is pretty much just normal summon Alistair Pass, is normal Mo Yi, reveal a Tenyi, and then just go ahead and make 2 disruptions from that, because literally Mo Yi can equal a Baron plus a Yugioh that just says, oh yeah, I can negate your face-up monsters, and then a Baron which is just an Omni Negate. Really strong, right? But the deck has a lot lot more than that as well, because you can abuse cards like the Tenyis, which will allow you to just go into lots of special summon plays, being able to allow you to end on a double banish card that can burn your opponent, with also a Tenyi Berserker that can just go ahead and banish another card, and also a Shisha, of course, just so you can go ahead and disrupt your opponent there. Then it can also end on really niche things at times as well, such as Chen Ying for darks or lights. So if you're up against like a Drytron player, you can just 9 times out of 10 lock them out of their light monsters so they can't play the game. And if you go up against any dark deck, which obviously isn't always going to happen, but if you can just go into a Chen Ying, make the Yazi, and if you can get to that level 2 tuner, which you normally get to through increasing the level of another monster you control. Normally, I believe it's the Earth Tuner monster. And then you go into Chen Ying that way, and then just go ahead and have no darks for that game. So honestly, it's a really, really cool strategy, Sword Soul, that yes, can be very linear and easy, just like Invoked was, but it's a very strong strategy and has a lot of potential and a lot of capability. And obviously, it's one of the better decks of the format, being just a full synchro power turbo deck, which is really, really good. And when it comes to this format, like, it's very diverse in how the format actually plays. So yeah, this is your synchro deck for the format. If you guys like synchro, this is one of the best synchro decks out there and can perform very, very well. So if you want to play it, I highly recommend playing it if you enjoy synchros. But let's go ahead and into the next one, because Sword Soul is a strong synchro deck that can end on multiple disruptions as well. So let's go to the next. At number 3, I have for you Branded Despire. And yes, of course, this is gonna be on the list. Like, let's be honest, Branded Despire is a deck that literally has molded the format to play around this deck. And yes, it's very, very strong, and it's definitely gonna be on this list, but I don't think it's number 1. And we're gonna go ahead and talk about why it's one of the best decks, though. So first of all, the main reason to why Branded Despire is one of the best decks in the format is because it's really consistent. Like, this deck is insanely consistent, being able to play tons of cards like Allure of Darkness for draw power, the Frightful Patchwork engine. You could play the Predaplant engine as well if you really, really wanted, because that engine is actually really cool and can do a lot of different stuff. The deck can end on multiple disruptions, be it your Mirror Jade Dragon for a banish with your Branded Red set, so you can go ahead and reset up the Mirror Jade along with a Chimera, just so you can go ahead and pop stuff and draw stuff as well. The deck has a lot of consistency and a lot of ways to disrupt your opponent. The deck can just go ahead and search all of its stuff and draw all of its stuff. The deck has literally like Aluba, literally just lets you search any branded card in the game. The deck has a lot of different consistent cards as well, such as Mercuria, which when it's banished, you can search any card that is Albaz or lists Albaz in its name monster, and then you can just go ahead and discard it from your hand as well if you control an Albaz Dragon to go ahead and get a monster negate as well on top of that. Like, this deck has a lot going for it, is very, very strong, is very, very capable, and it can even go into a burn play as well, where you play Masquerade, make double Masquerade every time your opponent plays a card or attempts to activate a card. They have to go ahead and pay 1200 life points, or 600 if you have one, just so you can go ahead and stop your opponent from playing that way. Now, there are slight issues with this deck if you guys are playing this deck. Like, one, it doesn't play hand traps, so if you are worried about not having any hand traps in your deck to go ahead and interact with your opponent on your turn, maybe this isn't the deck for you. But in all honesty, guys, this is a really strong deck, this format. It has dropped in price quite a bit as well, if I remember correctly, because a lot of people are just siding for it right now. But when that dies down, this deck's going to rise in popularity again, and it's definitely a really, really strong strategy, just for the fact that Activate Branded Fusion can literally equal so many different cards in the game. It can equal Dragoons, it can equal the Mirror Jade, it can equal just a load of different fusion monsters in this game, and that's really, really insane in my personal opinion. So if you want to play this deck, I highly recommend it, because it's a very simple deck, a very easy deck to play, and also it has gone down in price a bit as well, so if you want to play it. But this is definitely the 3rd best deck in the format, I would say, and just pray that you don't get debarried as well, guys, because that's the main thing about this deck and why people kind of going off it a bit, because the D barrier is kind of strong. But the deck nonetheless is really, really good. It's very strong, it's super consistent, can set up multiple disruptions, mainly pop disruptions, not really negates, but the deck is strong, the deck is good, and if you just want an easy deck, this is definitely an easy deck to play that is also very, very strong in this format. So yeah, this deck is great. It's the 3rd best deck in the format, and definitely something you guys should consider playing. So yeah, that's number 3. Number 2, I have a deck that's my personal favorite this format, and that deck is Phantom Knights, specifically Phantom Knights Adventure. Now, there is a lot of reasons to why I think this is one of the best decks of the format, and we're going to go into it in this video. So first of all, why I think this is one of the best decks in this format is because it can make Ophion. And it doesn't just make Ophion, but it makes Ophion with multiple other disruptions. And you're probably thinking, why is that so strong? Well, first of all, Ophion is a monster that says neither player can special summon level 5 or higher monsters, and every other deck I've listed in this list special summons level 5 or higher monsters. So, first of all, just insane how I can stop all of those other decks. Now, second of, why is this deck so strong, is because it's really consistent. All you really need to do to play the deck is draw 2 level 3s, and the worst hand you can actually have with just 2 level 3s is setting up a double Fogblade with a Rusty Bard each. Now, yes, that isn't amazing, but the thing is, when it comes down to this deck, the deck has a lot of combo plays, and as long as you don't open something like, I don't know, 2 level 3s such as the Psychic Tracker and the Psychic Wielder, or like a Phantom Knight Sustain Greaves and another Psychic Wielder or Psychic Tracker, you're going to be going off super consistently. And even if you do open the Greaves, actually, you can still go off, because normally all you need to make this deck really, really good is to draw literally a PK and any other level 3 you can special summon. Like, that is full combo, because you can abuse cards like Cherubini that sends any level 3 to the graveyard. You can abuse the Adventure Package to give you that free Omni Negate plus Compulse. Like, you have a lot of different utility cards in this deck, and a lot of different ways to play the game in this deck as well, which is just makes it really, really strong. Now, I do want to give a word of warning. If you do choose to play this deck does take quite a bit of skill. You need to learn a lot about the deck, a lot about the different routes you can go down, and a lot of different combo plays you can do, because this deck literally can go into so many different routes which can really affect the board, because technically this deck on turn 1 should be ending on an Omni Negate with the Griffin Rider, a Rusty Bard each, that's a pop with the Breaksword in Graveyard, a Redoer, a Utopic Future Draco, and normally a Fogblade or 2 set as well. And that is pretty much one of the best boards you can make, which is really strong when you really think about it. But you've got to be careful, because if you do make slight misplays, you can just end on like an Omni Negate, an Ophion, and a Fogblade. But honestly, if you do play this deck, make sure you're a bit careful, because it does have a lot of combo lines, and it is really, really strong this format. But if you're going to play it, just learn the deck and make sure you know what you're doing, because that's the only warning I give, because this deck is really, really strong this format, but you gotta know what you're doing. If you make the slightest mistakes at times, it can cost you the game, and I've learned that the hard way, so yeah. But this is number 2. This is the second best deck in this format in my personal opinion. Let's go ahead and go on to the best deck of the format though. Okay, so what do I think is the best deck going into July? What is number 1? Well, what I think is number 1 is p.u.n.k Adventure. And there is quite a few reasons to why I personally feel like this is one of the best decks going into the next format, and we're going to talk about them now. So, first of all, this deck, super consistent. One emergency teleport can be full combo. The p.u.n.k engine is literally just 1 card combo on its own most of the time. Like, you open a Foxy Tune, you just send another card to graveyard along with it. That gets you to your Xiamen, and Xiamen just lets you go full combo most of the time. Like, literally, just insane how 1 card can equal full combo. Like, E-Tele / Foxy Tune is pretty much insane. 2, this deck can abuse Adventure like no other deck. Now, PK can abuse Adventure, but the way this deck does it is a lot different to PK. This deck can use the Adventure Package to go into Synchro plays, can use it to go into Link plays, and still end with multiple Omni Negates, or even end with a Scythe Lock. Yes, this deck can Scythe Lock, which is really, really strong. Like, being able to have a deck that is super consistent with 1 card combos, that can literally just go ahead and Scythe Lock your opponent, and can also still set up multiple negates through like Baroness and literally like Red Hot Dragon Archfiend Abyss, is absolutely insane. Just being able to negate face-up cards, have an Omni Negate, like, it's really, really strong, and you can most of the time do this through 1 to 2 cards, which I think is really, really strong and really, really good. Now, another reason to why I think this deck is actually really strong as well is because it can technically abuse cards like Sangan, and I know that's like a very niche thing, but when you can do something like that in a deck, I think a deck has a lot of potential. Being a deck that can literally just go normal summon Sangan, link it off, search the Aurora from the Crusadia deck, and just special summon it, go into a Link 2 play, Hulk summon, and then you can go from there to literally just make a ton of other plays is really, really strong, because you can abuse one-ofs such as Rocket Synchron. You can abuse literally Fairy Tail Snow. You can send them to Graveyard via the Shooting Rise Dragon. You can send Token Collector as well, which is really good against Sword Soul. Like, you can send Spell Canceller as well, which I only found out after the event, because of, honestly, that's kind of scary when you think about it. That deck can send any real monster to the graveyard, make a Baroness, and then summon it back, is really, really strong and really good. And the fact that this deck can one-card Scythe combo, the fact that this deck can do a lot of different things, make Omni Negates, make literally floodgate cards, play cards, and get access to cards very easily, such as literally Token Collector and all of these other very strong cards such as Artifact Scythe, and have Omni Negates such as the Baroness and also the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which I said earlier. Like, the deck has a lot going for it, and the fact that it's so consistent with 3 Emergency Teleport, the entire P.u.n.k engine, the entire Brave package, like, this deck doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, and the rest of the space in that deck literally just goes to you putting hand traps in it. You can literally play, I believe, up to 9 to 12 hand traps in this deck if you really wanted to, and just go full combo from there most of the time, because 1 Xiamen, full combo, 1 E-Telly, full combo, 1 Sangan, full combo. Like, there is a lot that this deck actually has going for it, and the fact that it can also abuse cards such as the Chaos Ruler, the Synchro Monster, and also Zombie Vampire, just to allow you to mill more cards to get to more combo pieces. It has a lot going for it, and has a lot of different things that it can do, and it has a lot of different abuse plays that it actually has as well, which I just think is really strong and really, really good, that I really cannot say anything other than this is probably the best deck going into July. Like, honestly, playing against this at Nationals, getting smacked by it twice, mainly only losing to myself and also my opponent top decking E-Telly, like, I have to admit that this deck has a lot going for it. It can play a lot of really strong power cards, Fairy Tail Snow, Rocket Synchron, Halki Fibrax, Scythe, like Floodgate cards such as Spell Counselor. Like, this deck has a lot going for it, and I definitely think it's one of the stronger decks going into the next format or the next month. So yeah, but guys, that is just all I have to say for this video. What do you think? Do you think these 5 decks that I mentioned are the best decks? Do you think there's other decks that are better than them? Hey, I didn't mention Drytron that won the Nationals. Like, I didn't mention other decks that were really, really strong. But personally, in my opinion, looking at the format, looking at what I think is good, I personally feel like these are the best 5 decks for a lot of different reasons. And yeah, that's just my personal thoughts and opinions. If I had to say Drytron was on the list, it's probably 6. Like, let's be honest, if you know how to play against that deck and they have no way to combo through you 9 times out of 10, then you're just gonna go through them and you're not gonna lose, you're gonna win. But it's still a strong deck, guys. Don't harass me saying that it's not. Drytron is strong, but I just think it's number 6 in comparison to these 5. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Tell me all your thoughts in the comment section below. Tell me what decks you think are strong. Tell me what decks you think are better. Maybe you have a different organization of this list. Maybe you would take out PK, throw it to the side, and put Drytron into its place. But hey, that's just my thoughts and opinions, and we all have our own thoughts and opinions. But guys, that's all I have to say. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. We're all about one, signing out. Later all.